Hi, Jeremy here, Modern Vitality. Today's video is a walk and talk, but there's a lot of crunchy leaves, so I'm going to be sitting still so that you can actually hear me. We're taking questions from the Modern Vitality Solutions and Support Group and answering them in video format so that it can help everybody. And today's question is, how do I heal post-viral fatigue? Right? So we have like people with COVID, long haulers, reactivated Epstein-Barr, and even some of these conditions like fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome may have roots that are viral. Right? It's entirely possible. I know I've said this a bunch of times, right? But it's something worth considering, is that when we test for pathogens, we're only going to find the ones that we're looking for, right? So if there's something that exists that we haven't discovered yet, we're not going to know about it. There could be all kinds of things, right? A novel pathogen is something that, we've now all become intimately familiar with. People around the world, right, are learning about novel pathogens, whether they want to or not, over the last few years. So what you got to understand here is that your body generates fatigue to protect you for the most part. Most symptoms that come are protective, okay? They might be unpleasant, and this is the assumption I operate by. Your symptoms might be unpleasant. They might ruin your life, okay? They might ruin your marriage. They might put a strain on everything you want to do, okay? It totally sucks. But at the same time, you want to understand that your body isn't doing these things to make life hard for you. Your body's doing these things to help you survive. And it might be unpleasant, but it keeps you alive. Now, fatigue, one of the best ways to understand fatigue is the absence of energy to do things, right? So you don't feel like getting up and dancing or taking long hikes or bike rides or whatever, going swimming, these kinds of things, because you're tired. What that does is that keeps you from moving. It keeps you stationary, right? So this is a way, there's a balance going on between your immune system and your blood circulation. And you got to understand that if you have a pathogen hidden in your body, your immune system wants it to stay put, right? Your circulatory system wants to pump blood everywhere, and your immune system wants nothing to move, because the more you circulate blood, then the more you're going to drive these pathogens all over to deeper and deeper parts of the body. So there's a balance, okay? They have a compromise. Yeah, we'll keep the blood flow going. We're going to keep you alive, but we're going to keep you tired, right? And this is when the mitochondria, the little energy powerhouse in the cell, right? They start to sense the environment, and they say, oh, we better start to turn down energy production, because if we turn it up, then the human, right, that's driving this body is going to start moving around, exercising, and that's going to wind up pumping blood and getting all these pathogens deeper and deeper. So you get tired as a way to protect yourself, right? It's unpleasant, and especially, I know the fatigue can really suck the fun out of life. So especially if it's lasted a long time. I mean, I've worked with people with these cases where they've been bedbound for like decades, they're miserable. People, and I know I'm saying this kind of lightly, but there's some deep stuff. I really respect the process people are going through, because I've met plenty of people that are suicidal or borderline suicidal, or have at least thought about it. Some of them have tried it, right? Attempted. And of course, I'm not a suicide counselor. If you're at that point, right, you need to talk to professional help on that. But what I will say is that this quality of life can get so bad that death starts to become more appealing, right? And this is a dangerous place to be. So while our body is trying to keep us alive, it's doing the best it can. We need to come in with a skilled understanding of how to untangle this knot, right? What's the next piece of the puzzle here in terms of getting your body working better so you don't have to generate fatigue to protect yourself? If you're at all familiar with my work, you've probably heard me talk about stage 1, immune, stage 2, digestive, stage 3, neuroadrenal, stage 4, blood circulation. There's also like a bonus stage 5 of supplementing and boosting and biohacking and these kinds of things. Not everybody needs that, right? But pretty much everybody needs to go through stages, at least 1 and 2 and 3, and most times 4 as well. Because we're human. There's universal truths about the human body. And that's something I can say about this process, is that when you universally apply it, right, and you have to customize your approach for each individual. You have to make it unique. But the universal framework is immune, digestive, neuroadrenal, blood circulation. Okay, this isn't something I made up or created out of thin air. This is something that comes from very, very old medicine. And the more I see modern research and science, and the more I learn about these tiny little things going on in our body and the biochemistry, the more I see justification and support for this method, right? Let alone, of course, all the wins and the people getting their life back using this. For me, that's really all I need. The biochemistry is just a nice bonus, right? So I'm not just making this up, pulling out of thin air. It's very clinically sound, and it's just how our body works. It's how it needs to be treated. There's an order of operations, right? There's an order of operations if you want to troubleshoot the Wi-Fi at your house, right? You got to turn it off, turn it on, plug it in, do all this stuff. That's just a simple little machine. Of course, there's an order of operations for your human body, which is complex, right? And adaptive and ever-changing. So if you're dealing with post-viral fatigue, whether it's officially long COVID or reactivated Epstein-Barr, or I mean, there's so many of these things, right? These conditions where you get this kind of, I got sick and then kind of stayed sick kind of deal, right? I think most times fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, they tend to fall into this as well. Now, another one too, and this isn't necessarily viral, but mold exposure tends to fall into this as well, because the mold can also, it's a pathogen, right? It just acts like a pathogen. And also sometimes when you get mold, now you've got a higher predisposition to either reactivate other viruses or pick them up. Same thing with Lyme, right? Lyme's not viral, it's a bacteria, it's a spirochete, but you'll get this whole thing where one door opens from a pathogen going crazy and all these other viruses are going nuts too. Right? So you can get, we call it post-viral fatigue. You could really call it post-pathogen fatigue, right? Any kind of pathogen. You get these hidden pathogens. They will hibernate in your body. They'll just hide out. We see this with herpes, right? People get shingles. You know, the virus is hiding in a nerve, and then for whatever reason, you know, people have their own triggers, right? And it's specific for the individual, but you'll do certain things. You stayed up too late, you had a lot of stress, you ate something you shouldn't have eaten, whatever it is. And now all of a sudden you got, you know, shingles coming off on your face where your body's trying to express and clear out this virus that started acting up, right? Or on your ribs. It's incredibly painful, but that's the mechanism, is that the virus is hiding somewhere. They're latent, they're hidden, they wait, right? So it's no different with Epstein-Barr, COVID, whatever you got, right? This is how we understand these pathogens working. And in Eastern medicine, we look at the barriers to the body and depth. So there's different levels. So when a pathogen comes in, it enters usually superficially, right? It gets into your nasal mucosa or something, right? You know, you get a stuffy nose or a runny nose, right? Rhinitis, they call it, something like that. And then it goes down deeper, becomes like a sore throat or a cough or pneumonia, bronchitis, an upper respiratory infection, right? These kinds of things. It's going deeper, 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 right? Now, there's even more subtlety to this and more nuance and more detail. I'm not going to try to get into all this jargon with you, but basically the idea is these pathogens are headed for your most vital places, your brain and central nervous system and your heart, right? These are the kill places. You don't want this stuff in there because it will kill you. That's the idea. So your immune system does everything it can to keep that from happening, which is why when you very first get something coming in, you sneeze, right? Blow it out, get it out. I don't want you in my heart, right? Now, you know, it's really interesting with Eastern medicine because a lot of this stuff's observational over thousands and thousands of years at the very least, right? But we also see things where like strep throat, it's a big deal because it can affect your heart. You know, doctors are looking in kids' mouths, oh, it's strep, you know, we've got to give antibiotics because you don't want the kid to have a heart problem, right? Well, what is that? That's the same thing I'm talking about. These pathogens come in. If they get deep enough, they'll go to your vital organs, your vital areas. Don't want that to happen. Your immune system can do all kinds of wonderful stuff. Sometimes it'll take a pathogen, it'll just stick it in your tonsils, hold it there. Try not to let it get any further down. Sometimes it'll stick it in a lymph node, right? And the lymph node gets swollen up. And they keep that pathogen in jail, right? So it doesn't get any further in. Interesting, right? Containment. Sometimes it's in your gallbladder. Sometimes it's in your appendix, right? Places where a lot of these things are things that get surgically removed, in case you didn't notice. There's a trend there, right? Swollen tonsils, lymph nodes, gallbladder, appendix, right? These are places where we can store pathogens. Now, it gets even more interesting because your body can also shuttle pathogens to the joints, right? Nobody wants pathogens in their joints. You don't want inflamed joints. But if that happens, you might get rheumatoid arthritis, right? Where you're having an autoimmune reaction to the pathogen activity in your joints. You might get joint pain, wandering pain, right? It might move from joint to joint, depending on what's going on. This isn't because your body wants you to have joint pain. It's because your body wants those pathogens out. That's not happening. It doesn't know how to get them out, right? Which is part of my job in stage 1 is to start clearing that stuff like crazy and give you a clean slate to work with, right? That's what we do, but we do it gently so you don't have these horrible reactions. And like people do this stuff, they go too hard, too fast. They get like Herxheimer reactions. They get all these flares, a healing crisis, all this stuff. It scares the hell out of them, right? It's intense. There are much more graceful ways to do this, where you can give your body enough of a gentle push to start slowly getting this stuff out so it doesn't overwhelm your system, it doesn't overwhelm your liver, right? You need to be able to get it all out and survive that, right? So, I mean, that's what we do. That's part of stage 1. But if your body can't do that on its own, it will sequester these things. It will hide them, right? It'll hide them in your joints. Better your joints than in your central nervous system, right? Better your joints than in some internal organ. That's the logic of your body. That's the strategy. So when you have post-viral fatigue, right, it's because your body knows I've stuck this pathogen in this joint or these joints, or it's in the neck or wherever it is, right? Or it's in these lymph nodes. Please don't exercise. Please don't do jumping jacks. Please don't run around the block, right? Please don't have sex. All these things that start to go away from your list of what you'd like to do that day. It's just unrealistic. You're too exhausted, too tired. It's because that fatigue is there to keep you from moving around and circulating all those pathogens. Because your immune system has put everything in a holding pattern where it smolders a little bit while it's trying to figure out what to do. And unfortunately, that smolder cycle can last decades if you don't intervene the right way. Part of that is my job, right? Stage 1. Immune specificity. There's such massive leverage there. And then we move on to, of course, stage 2. Let's heal the gut. Let's work on the digestion. Let's try to recultivate a positive bacterial balance, right? A positive microbiome so that you can develop more immune resilience for the next thing, because that'll feed back, right? That's what we do. We set a foundation, right? Stage 1, and then we build on that. Stage 2 will now reinforce the foundation. Gives you a stronger immune system, right? But you can't do it backwards. I met people, they go, okay, and practitioners do this. All disease begins in the gut. Maybe some of it does, right? But not all of it. Otherwise, everything would be healed if you do a gut cleanse. But how many people have I met that do gut detoxes and gut rebuilds and gut cleanses, but they still have the health problems, right? It's because they started at stage 2, right? You can't skip steps. Some people can, and they get lucky. If they have a very mild case, you can start at stage 2, or for whatever reason, that's all they got going on, right? I don't usually meet those people. I meet people that need actual structured help with a real plan. So if you're having post-viral fatigue or post-pathogen fatigue, or you got sick and you've been exhausted, that's probably why, right? There's nothing wrong with you. Your body's actually doing the right thing. It's following the plan. This is plan B, right? Your body's following it. Hey, I got sick. Plan A is get rid of the pathogen, get it out and get back to normal. Plan B is, it's still here, right? We better lay low and wait for help, right? Well, help is here. If you like these kinds of conversations, if you're struggling with a chronic health condition, you might consider applying for the Modern Vitality Solutions and Support Groups. You don't have to be alone and do this by yourself, right? I mean, you might figure out how to heal your body on your own, after years and years of trial and error and all that, or you could just get in a community of people who are already following a proven plan. Ask me anything you want in there. There's lovely people from all over the world, right? We've got an international group. It's free to join as a guest. I do have paid programs, right? When I take a case, it's not cheap. I'm very attentive. I respect that. I value that, right? I'm not cheap to work with, but it's free to join. You can ask me anything you want in there. We use a chat group, right? It's secure. It's private. You're not going to have your information blasted all over the place. It's a really warm, cozy, positive place to be. A lot of positivity, just great people. So I keep an application so that I can keep the group nice and to make sure that your condition and your problem that you're dealing with, they're actually things that we help in our group. So if you like the sounds of this, if you'd like to join us and have these kinds of conversations and ask me my perspective on what's going on with your case, you're going to need to fill out the application. You'll find the link. I'll take a look, right? Do a good job. Be thoughtful, because I read every single one. Might be a week, might be a couple weeks, might be a month. I don't know how long it'll be before I can get you in. I keep the group cozy, but I try not to make everybody wait. So just keep an eye out. You will get a text and an email if your application is successful. I hope that's helpful for you. All right, let's get you feeling better. Cheers.